Christian lectionary is a way for churches around the world to together reflect on the same text. So there's usually texts from the Hebrew Scriptures, several texts from the New Testament. On this Sunday, one of these texts is Isaiah 40, a very famous chapter of Isaiah, one in which this image of soaring on eagle's wings plays a really prominent role. It's an image that evokes a kind of the physicality of sports, but also draws us to ever higher achievements. The image is an extremely powerful but also very popular image. If you Google it, you'll see that it's used by lots of Christian athlete organizations, lots of different sports teams. Tim Tebow is a professional football player for the Denver Broncos. On the one hand, his football exploits have been something of a miraculous level. But more importantly, I think, for our current culture, is that Tim Tebow always talks about his faith. One of the distinctive things that Tim Tebow would do in college is to write scripture verses in these black eye patches under his eye. So when the cameras would zoom in, they would not only see his face, but these texts of scripture in huge letters. One of the texts that he wore under his eye patch is actually this very Isaiah 40 text, in a way to try to embody this sense that God is with him. The prophet Isaiah wrote during a time when Israel found itself in exile, in a foreign land, far from their temple, far from the center of their worship. Isaiah, of course, couldn't imagine what his audience might have been like 2,000 years later. But I think in some ways, those are faithful uses of the text. After all, the text does remind us that God is with us, that God will lift us up in all our endeavors. Where I think we have to be a little careful is remembering that the original audience, people who were downtrodden, who were fearful and afraid, who felt weak and exposed and powerless in the world. So I think it is right to appropriate that text, but I think with some caution, some nuance, and some attention to the original audience. And that attention, I think, may draw us away from ourselves. One of the ways I think Tebow does embody particularly well the original audience of Isaiah is that at every football game that he has, he invites some sort of disadvantaged child or someone with some sort of medical condition, pays for them to come to the game, meets with them both before and after the game. And what I've noticed too he does is that at press conferences after the game, when the reporters are asking him about his performance, he always talks about this child that he brought to the game, highlighting them, highlighting their difficulties, but also highlighting what a good day they had had. I think this is one way in which he does embody this Isaiah 40 text, because he could very well bring the spotlight on himself that much more powerfully by talking about his faith, talking about his achievements. But by always bringing up these children, he points that spotlight away from himself, in a sense, to people who are in a difficult part of life, who find themselves in a weak position, much like these Israelites living in exile in Babylon.